The parallel economy is not necessarily one that you intend to run in parallel tracks for the next 50 years. Mm-hmm. One of the things that a parallel economy does is it introduces competition into the system. And if the competition starts to wane, right, they might go under, and then there you've taken over the space.
Yeah. Or
they might admit defeat and you acquire them. Mm-hmm. Right. So, so if you have, let's say, chatting beforehand, what is Fox News redeemable? Mm-hmm. Well, left to their own devices, no.
Yeah.
But let's say someone starts a conservative news network that is what Fox used to be. Mm-hmm. Okay. And let's say it gains traction and it's head for head, keeping pace with Fox. It's conceivable that you could have some sort of corporate merger, takeover, and Fox be brought back into the family. A little inkling of this would be, who would have imagined 20 years ago that Tucker Carlson would upstage a presidential debate? Mm-hmm. Right. So what you're basically saying is that something that is operating on the level of a podcast, has taken on the sort of the establishment media and buried them as far as the numbers are concerned. All right. So at some point, what Tucker's doing is going to have to be institutionalized.
Yeah.
Right. And when it's institutionalized, what might it acquire?
Right.
Right. So I don't think you can have parallel economy forever. I think it's a competition, and at some point, someone's going to fold, or someone's going to be acquired, or admit defeat, or they will become the loyal opposition. This is a very important point to emphasize. One of the things that conservatives and Christians especially can't copy the progressive playbook on this, because they get to be dishonest. Mm-hmm. They can wheedle their way into seminaries and lie. Mm-hmm. They can get into publishing houses and lie. They can sign statements of faith that they don't mean. And conservatives want to go to heaven when they die. They don't want to lie, cheat, and steal. Mm-hmm. And so consequently, anything that we do has to be done in a way that's clever but honest.
Yeah.
All right. So I would say there are times when an institution might be just getting on in years and is kind of decrepit, right? Mm-hmm. And so some people start coming, fresh blood. They've got young ideas, and the old timers are too tired to fight, and there's a takeover that way. Another a way is, and one of the things we've done in Moscow is we have started a number of alternative institutions. Mm-hmm. We have built a significant parallel economy.
People, when they're thinking about this, they say we need to start the conservative X or conservative Y or whatever. Like, I think a good example here is like social media companies. Mm-hmm. Like we need to start a conservative social media platform that inevitably, does not get a lot of reach. And I think you have this with products too, certain kinds of, like, I guess there's this new like non-woke beer out there that's supposed to be like against Bud Light or whatever.
Or Liberty Safe. I saw advertisements for, they turned over codes to the feds, and okay, now another safe company taking an opportunity. Yeah. Okay, maybe, probably not.
Yeah. So what I'm curious about, and why I'm particularly curious about this, is because you guys have done this so well out in Moscow. What is kind of like the line of when it's best to take something over versus starting something new?
Okay, so when we were doing our thing, we were not taking over was not a thought in our minds. Mm-hmm. Okay, what we wanted to do was simply be left alone. We wanted to educate our own children. The first alternative thing we started was Logos School. And in a town our size, Logos has got like 650 students in it this year, which for a town our size, for a private Christian school, is enormous. And we are, in effect, a parallel school system. About a third of the school-age school children in Moscow, about a third of them are receiving a private Christian education. And I think we're just a few years away from the government school system dipping below 50%, which I hope to see that before I go to heaven, where the government school system is the minority form of education.
Yeah.
But we didn't start it in order to take them on, but in the providence of God, that's sort of what started to happen. And because that our competition here is a government entity, not a free market entity. If it was a restaurant, the secular restaurant might close down. But the government school system is supported by the taxpayer and a lot of momentum behind it. So even if it dwindles down to next to nothing, it's still going to be there, right? So what we were doing is simply tending to our own knitting, minding what has God called us to do. We don't want to turn our children over. We want to educate them in the Lord. But as kids have grown up under that system, and we emphasize the covenant and extended family, and kids marry and they want to stay in Moscow, they want to make a living there. They have to make a living like everybody else does. But because of the worldview Christianity that we inculcate, they value entrepreneurship, aggressiveness, industry, creativity. And so a number of them started their own businesses and are just very active.
Yeah.
And so our people have to make a living just like all the people in the other churches have to make a living. There's nothing unusual in the system. So when Kirkers, the nickname for us is Kirkers. That's a long story, but Christ Church, and the Scottish word for church is Kirk. And in the early days of internet stuff, christchurch.com was too long. And so we shortened it to Christ Kirk and Kirkers. I named just that because if you don't name it, somebody else will.
Yeah.
And so our Kirker community is, let's say you're running someone starts a restaurant. I don't run it. I don't own it. The board of elders doesn't control anything. It's not a thing that the church is doing. It's a thing that people in the church, members of the church, are doing, operating out of a shared worldview. Okay, so there's an important point to be made here, is I distinguish theologically, I distinguish church and kingdom. So if you think of a medieval town, the church is at the center of the town, proclamation of the word and administration of the sacraments. The church is word and sacrament. And in the medieval town, all around are the bakeries and the bicycle repair shops and the software companies and everything. That's all in the kingdom. But it's not controlled by the elders. It's not controlled by the church. The people who run these shops acknowledge Christ, and they come and worship every Lord's Day, and they're taught to think in a biblical worldview. They're taught to behave like Christians, work hard like Christians, be honest and above board like Christians, and then they're sent back out into the town. So a lot of what people are seeing in Moscow is not church work, but kingdom work.
Yeah.
Right. And I don't run it. I have influence on it, but I'm not in control of it. I don't go to board meetings. I don't see spreadsheets. It's just the people of God doing their thing. Then there are certain things that I do have a voice on. I'm on the board of Logos School and so forth, things that we started. But a lot of what's going on, I just watch and am amazed.
Yeah. It seems to me like the answer here is actually provide, like if you were to, use a business term for this, like provide an actual good product.
Yeah.
Like your focus does not need to be on making conservative chocolate bars or whatever. It's like, I actually want to make the best product.
Yeah. Martin Luther said that if you want to be a Christian cobbler, you don't make shoes with little crosses on them.
Yeah.
right? You make good shoes.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Period.